Krishna, Hare Krishna. Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Sri Vrajgacharya Stotra Satya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Contributed Founders Charyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Ki Harinama Sankirtan Ki Nantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nai Manandi. All that is to be assembled. All that is to be assembled. All that is to be assembled. All that is. All that is. The Sri Guru to Sri Gauranga. All that is. All that is. The Sri Guru. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Dakshudamilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadam Dikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaisnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagram Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Sakanditam Scha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namasre Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishadhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Vansakalpa Viluyasya Kripa Sindhu Jaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Ram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayasa badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavikinaristiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed, attractive faith and will, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Tamastloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Svasayanam Maha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Vivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Surabhyay Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vakaram pangum gangayate girim yadvipatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataram. Yadvipatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. We continue to read from the second canto, second chapter entitled The Lord in the Heart, and today's text is 19, 1-9. Itam munis tu paramid yavastito vijnana drig virya turanditashraya sva Sparshninapidya Budam Tato Anilam Staneshu Satsun Namayej Jita Klamaha Itham Munistu Paramed Vyavastito Vijnana Drigvirya Suranditasyaha Swaparshnena Vidya Gudam Tato Nilam Staneshu Satsun Namayej Jita Klamaha Itham Munistu Paramed Vyavastito Vijnana Drigvirya Suran Dhitasyaha Swaparshnina Gudam Tato Nilam Staneshu Satsun Namayej Jita Klamaha Itham Munistu Paramed Vyavastito Vijnana Drigvirya Suran Dhitasyaha Swaparshnina Gudam Tato Nilam Staneshu Satsun Namayej Jita Klamaha
Itam munisto paramed vyavastito Vijnana drigvirya surandita Swaparsnena pedya gudam tato nilam Stanesu satsun namayet Jita klamaha
Staneshu Satsun Namayej Jita Klamaha Itham Thus,
Thus,
by Brahman realization,
by Brahman realization,
Munihi, the philosopher,
two,
but
but
Uparamit,
Paramit,
should retire.
should retire.
Vyavastitaha, well situated.
Well situated.
Vijnanadrik,
Vijnanadrik,
by scientific knowledge.
by scientific knowledge.
Virya, strength.
Strength.
Surandita,
Surandita,
well regulated.
well regulated.
Ashayaha, aim of life.
Aim of life.
Swaparshnina,
Swaparsnina,
with the heel of one's foot.
with the heel of one's foot.
Apidya,
Apidya,
by blocking.
Udam,
the air hole.
the air hole. Tataha,
Thereafter. Anilam, life air. Staneshu, place. Oops. In the place. Yes. Satsu, six primary. Unamayat, must be lifted. Jita Klamaha, by extinguishing. Material desire. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot, and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the six primary places. Trying to repeat after me. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization, and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot, and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the six primary places. Purport. There are many Duratmas who claim to have realized themselves as Brahman and yet are unable to conquer material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 1854, it is clearly explained that an absolutely self-realized soul becomes completely aloof from all material desires. Material desires are based on the false ego of the living being and are exhibited by his childish and useless activities to conquer the laws of material nature, and by his desire to lord it over the resources of the five elements. With such a mentality, one is led to believe in the strength of material science with its discovery of atomic energy and space travel by mechanical vehicles, and by such tiny advancements in material science, the false egoist tries to challenge even the strength of the Supreme Lord, who can finish all man's tiny endeavors in less than a second. The well-situated self, or Brahman realized soul, perfectly understands that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is the all-powerful Vasudeva, and that he, the self-realized living being, is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. As such, his constitutional position is to cooperate with him in all respects in the transcendental relation of the served and the servitor. Such a self-realized soul ceases to exhibit his useless activities of attempting to lord it over material nature. Being scientifically well informed, he fully engages in faithful devotion to the Lord. Second and last paragraph for the purport. The expert yogi who has thoroughly practiced the control of the life air by the prescribed method of the yoga system is advised to quit the body as follows. He should plug up the evacuating hole with the heel of the foot and then progressively move the life air on and on to 6 places. The navel, abdomen, heart, chest, palate, eyebrows, and cerebral pit. Controlling the life air by the prescribed yogic process is mechanical, and the practice is more or less a physical endeavor for spiritual perfection. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalists, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable. But in modern days, when the influence of Kali Yuga or Kali age is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in this art of body exercise. Concentration of the mind is more easily attained in these days by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The results are more effective than those derived from the inner exercise of the life air. So reading, okay, yeah. Reading the text again, by the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the 6 primary places. So this is reference to the Hatha Yoga system, where those who are not having proper knowledge of the absolute truth, those who are not conscious that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, most people who practice yoga, that's their situation. Actually, they understand the importance and the value of yoga, and generally, it's people who are more inclined to cultivate the mode of goodness. They will practice yoga. So, important point which is being mentioned here, of course, is um, the need or the necessity, if one is to be successful in this particular practice, to to seize or to no longer have material desires. Material desires are binding us in the material world. We cannot eliminate desire, but we can change the nature of our desire. The activities of the mind, thinking, feeling, and willing. Uh, Willing is connected with desire. Should be transformed from material thinking, material feeling, material wanting, uh, or material desire, to spiritual thinking, spiritual feeling, and spiritual willing or spiritual desire. Uh, this is only uh, possible if one, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita, actually experiences a higher uh, dimension of life. Param Drisya Nivartate, higher taste. Uh, so those who are bhakti yogis, uh, this 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 is the beginning of the description. It will. This is in reference to the different chakras. There are chakras within our body, uh, whereby mechanically one can raise these chakras. In other words, those who are here, it mentions in the beginning, scientific knowledge. Mm. By the strength of scientific knowledge. So, such yogis are actually real scientists. Devotees are also scientists because they know uh, what is beyond what we see every day. They know what is beyond matter. And devotees are primarily uh, fixed on uh, keeping their consciousness in in spiritual consciousness. Uh, and for devotees, this mechanical process, which is explained here, uh, is not necessary to follow. The mechanical process is for uh, those who are not yet knowing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, and those who know about Krishna. Uh, their primary focus is simply to engage in Krishna service. The more we engage in Krishna service to satisfy and to please Krishna, then we minimize or gradually do away with our material desires. Naturally, the more we increase our devotional activities, or the more we experience devotional feelings, devotional thinking by hearing such descriptions from Shastra, etc., then our material desires will gradually uh, become minimized to the point of actually, until they are completely eradicated, we are still in a dangerous position. Even one small desire, example is there in Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, he had reached a very high level of self-realization. He was at the bhava level, isn't it? 9 levels from Shraddha to Prema. Ado Shraddha Tato Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nidriti Nista. Nista. And then Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. So Bharat Maharaj, he was, by his practice, had actually already reached the stage of bhava. Still, because there's a higher level, the stage of prema, he developed, we come to know from Bhagavatam, he developed some attachment for this deer that he started looking after. And because of that attachment, uh, he was thinking of the deer when the moment of death came, and therefore had to fulfill that desire. He took the body of a deer. So it means that even in a very advanced level, if one is not cautious, uh, such material desire may still appear, and that will force us to actually, of course, he was very advanced, and therefore that was his, then after taking the birth of a deer, uh, he was actually benedicted by being conscious. And what he would do as a deer, he would come to some mango garden like here, where there is Bhagavatam class. Uh, he would, because traditionally sages, they would live in the forest, different forests, Vana, Vrindavana. Just like in South India, for all over India, there are forests, and before industrialization, especially, there were beautiful forests. Uh, it mentions how Narada Muni sages would actually travel, and they would take shelter. They would have ashram in the forest. Um, it mentions the word Sayadri. We have our SSKBK, Sayadri Sri Krishna. So Sayadri is mentioned in the Bhagavatam in the context of Narada Muni uh, traveling in that area. So forests are actually in the Vedic culture. It speaks about, what is it? Uh, Forest University. University was in the forest uh, because sages, sadhus, munis. Muni means uh, one who is knowledgeable, uh, scientist, actual scientist. So people would go to the forest. That's what the mother of Dhruva Maharaj instructed him. Uh, you have to go to the forest if you want to know about God. You have to go to the forest because there's people who are sadhus, saintly persons live in the forest, and they know about God. So if you want to know about God, you can go. You have to go to the forest. So for us as devotees, it's good to know about and to hear this particular process of yoga, but bhakti yoga, as we mentioned earlier, uh, is not necessary to. It's quite involved, and as Prabhupada mentions also, for people in Kali Yuga, this is generally not uh, not possible or not easy to follow. So we can continue actually in the next verse here, unless there's some question. Yes. There is a question. Okay, there is a question. Yes. Yeah. So, like in the previous temple where I was there, we were reading Canto 4, Chapter 22, the Prithvi Maharaj.
22, that section. So when he was ready to leave his body,
Prithu Maharaj.
Prithu Maharaj.
Uh-huh.
So he also did all this yogic process wherein he locked all the holes, slowly controlled the prana.
Yes.
He raised it above, and he finally,
He left his body.
he left his body.
Yes.
So, and what do you call Shakti Aves Avatar, an authorized personality, a devotee.
Yes.
Yeah, means by doing so, what does he telling us?
Well, this. So you're mentioning that actually an example of Prithu Maharaj when you were attending a class that was describing this particular pastime. It was explaining how Prithu Maharaj followed this particular process that is being described here. And so that seems to contradict what I'm saying in terms of devotees, because he was a devotee, Vaishnava devotee as well. We should understand that this was like a previous age where people were uh, much more uh, much more pious than people in Kali Yuga. It was different uh, uh, circumstances where it's just like in Satya Yuga, everyone knows about yoga. Everyone's a yogi, isn't it? Everyone's in situated in mode of goodness, etc. So there's no harm to follow that process when the it's like you know practicing yoga was a common activity for uh, people in previous ages um, uh, living a regulated life in the mode of goodness was in previous ages much more the standard of the day, so to speak. We live in a different age, which is described, of course, in the Bhagavatam as being the most fallen, where even simple things are very difficult. So, what even devotees followed in previous ages, we cannot imitate now. As a matter of fact, it's not recommended at all. Uh, so it was uh, a common thing in previous ages to practice such type of yoga. People were in a different environment, different a different situation. So um, it's not that the system or the process which is being described here and which has been followed in previous ages, it's not that it's not a bona fide process, but it's just not the recommended process for this age of study. Uh, so Bhagavatam is describing activities of great personalities throughout the different ages, and when we read these descriptions, we have to take out the essence of the instructions that are being given here. One of those in the verse this morning is that uh, to be successful in one's spiritual undertaking, one needs to do away with all material desires, isn't it? So that's the, uh, the main point, main instruction being given here. Uh, and the actual process in terms of yoga that can vary from one individual to another or from one yuga to another. But in Kali Yuga, it is clearly explained how we are in so many ways unqualified. When you go to the Western world and people. I remember one time I think it was a Sunday feast. We were in a Sunday feast, and normally after taking prasadam, we very important. We spend time with the guests naturally. They're new people; they don't know about Krishna consciousness. And I remember vividly this one particular person. It was new, and we'd been talking for a long time. And I was just sitting like we normally sit, and then I don't know, it must have been half an hour or something, or possibly more. And then he said, "How can you sit like that for so long?" I think for us it's natural. Devotees, they can sit. Most devotees can sit cross-legged for hours. But for many people in the Western countries, to sit cross-legged is just not. They're not accustomed. They're not possible. They'll sit like this, with the legs up, with both knees like up practically. And I mean, it's just so that's kind of like secondary. Uh, to sit in a yogic posture or not, what's most important is to hear and to understand the philosophy. Isn't it? So in a similar way, whether we follow this particular Astanga yoga process, which goes very much into the details, there are different types of, we speak about Kriya Yoga, uh, different types of Kundalini Yoga. You know, these are practiced in India. They're even introduced outside of India as well because yoga is quite popular in the Western countries. But these are not the standard yoga practices recommended for the mass of people in Kali Yuga. The recommended process for the general mass of people is this more simple process of chanting the holy name and engaging in devotional activities. So there are many other uh, processes of yoga. Uh, some people who can, they may take that up. Or we have devotees who are yoga teachers. We know some of them very close to us, but they're devotees, and they're helping people by their teachings of yoga to gradually come to Krishna consciousness. And yoga, of course, is very good to help one remain healthy, to be healthy. So therefore, what is called kala desha patra, time, place, and circumstance. We have to apply the teachings that we are hearing from the from the Bhagavatam. Just to, I think we have time actually. You can, let's see. Yeah, next verse is continuing the same description and has a short purport. So I'll read that as well. Text 20. Yeah. नाभ्यं स्थितं हृद्यादिरोप्य तस्माद्
नाभ्यं स्थितं हृदयनिरूप्य तस्मात्
उदानागत्योरसितं नयन् मुनिः
उदानगत्यो रसितं नयेन् मुनिः
ततोऽनुसन्धाय धिया मनस्वी
ततोऽनुसन्धाय धियन्मनस्वी
स्वतालुगुलं शनकायत्मयेत.
स्वतालुमूलं सनकायर्नयित.
Translation and purport. The meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, and from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. Purport. There are 6 circles of the movements of the life air, and the intelligent bhakti yogi should search out these places with intelligence and in a meditative mood. Among these mentioned above is the Swadhisthana Chakra, or the powerhouse of the life air, and above this, just below the abdomen and navel, is the Manipuraka Chakra. When upper space is further searched out in the heart, one reaches the Anahata Chakra, and further up, when the life air is placed at the root of the palate, one reaches the Vishuddhi Chakra. Yeah. and the text we will read tomorrow is describing how by this particular process, by raising the life air, uh, one can, well, actually, Bhagavatam mentions how yogis who may not know about uh, the spiritual world, they can, according to their desire, they can transfer themselves to some other planet. They can go to some heavenly planet, because in the Shastra there's all kinds of detailed explanation about this world, the material world, different planets that are there, and someone may may have such desire. Of course, for devotee, for devotee, uh, devotee has no such desire to go to other planets. His main desire is to go back to the spiritual world, spiritual planets. Um, unless Krishna has some particular service for him to go to some other planet. It's like, we are here in India, and we have devotees, those who are, especially sannyasis, they travel, so they go to some other planet, not exactly planet, some other country. They go from India to Indonesia, or they go from Indonesia to USA. Yeah. Some places are more attractive than others. Uh, but for devotee, his main attraction is the Vaikuntha planets, the spiritual world. Within the Vaikuntha planets, the topmost of all the Vaikuntha planets, Goloka, Goloka Vrindavan, because that's where Krishna resides. Yeah. Okay, we will close here for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. We have to get some cow dung today, because we have to wash this temple area.